everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm here today to share with you a book review, and it's for The Baby on the Fire Escape, Creativity, Motherhood, and the Mind Baby Problem by Julie Phillips, which was published in 2022. I was really surprised when I checked BookTube and found not one review of this book. And so one of the criteria that I look at when I'm considering whether or not to do a full review of a book that I've loved is whether or not there are other reviews of it on YouTube. And when I don't find one, I know that it is my duty to make a review of the book and promote it as best I can so that other people will read it and know about it. So The Baby on the Fire Escape is about creativity and motherhood. And I think that it could be applied also to creativity and parenthood in general. So whether or not you identify as a mother, whether you're a father, whatever type of parent you may be, I think that this book is going to apply to you. And I would even say that even if you're not a creative person, so even if you are a working parent of working in finance or working in the environment or running a not-for-profit, I think this book would be inspirational to you. And that is because Julie Phillips, who herself is a working parent, a working writing parent, is exploring the way that creatives in the span of the 20th century were able to build their lives and be successful in some cases. She profiles a few people that actually weren't successful in necessarily balancing parenting and their career path, but she explores a lot of the challenges that humans face when they are trying to pursue something for themselves as a person and also raise children. And so it's kind of a very broad thing, even though it's very specific. So this work of nonfiction covers 6 main creatives, so profiles them, goes into quite a bit of depth about their biographies and the course of their lives as creative people, and profiles the many different ways and different paths that you can take to become a parent who happens to also be a visual artist or a writer or a creative. The main women, because they are all women in this book, that were featured were painter Alice Neel, writer Doris Lessing, Ursula K. Le Guin, Audre Lorde, Alice Walker, and Angela Carter. So they were the main women who Julie Phillips chose to profile more in depth. But sprinkled throughout, there are other visual artists and writers. Elizabeth Smart, who I'd never heard of before, who's a Canadian writer. Louise Bourgeois, quite a famous French/American artist. Who else was in here? I mean, there were a lot of different types of women who created. And Julie Phillips was very good at melding these women's lives together, so putting them into context in where they fell in the 20th century, when they were born, what that meant for their expectations as women. So what society was telling them they were supposed to be when they became mothers, their access to birth control, which was a huge part of the story of this book, because at the beginning, the women who are born earlier in the 20th century have much less access to contraception and to control over their own body's fertility in order to allow them time to create. And as they moved down the 20th century, a lot of the women became, empowered by the fact that they had more choices and that they could make choices that these other women just would never have dreamed of making. There is also You can watch the feminist movement, the civil rights movement burgeoning here. You can see the level of privilege that white women had in this field over people of color. You can also see the ways in which being a mother were judged, are still judged, very much so, are still judged. But at the time in the early 20th century, women who were coming of age, who wanted to work, were looked at as if they had no sense whatsoever, that as if their aspirations to do something besides be a wife and mother were completely irrational and out of character. And so they had to maintain this belief in themselves and maintain a level of spirit to push through those preconceived ideas that were being placed on them to create the careers that they created. I mean, if you think about Alice Neal, Doris Lessing, Ursula K. Le Guin, they were all very, very successful women. Audre Lorde, Alice Walker, they reached pinnacles in their careers, and they did it despite the fact that they were grappling with all the issues that are brought up in this book. There's some amazing quotes in here. I have underlined many, many things. And I think Julie Phillips did an excellent job with her research here. So she took 10 years to write this book. And part of that was because she was also raising children. And I felt like that was a really poignant thing to say about this book and to put into this energy, is that, some good things take a long time to make. And our society now is very much pressuring people to create amazing things in literally 5 minutes, make it and put it out there and be amazing at it. But sometimes it takes you 10 years to write, an over 200 page, just over 200 pages book, 275 pages, because you're also trying to figure out the right way to do that. And there's a wonderful interview with Julie Phillips that is here on YouTube, and I will link that down below in the description if you'd like to hear more about the process of her writing the book, which I found very fascinating. How she chose who she chose, why she chose to depict them as she did. And she is a biographer, self-identified herself as a biographer. And I feel like that was her approach to the book, but it definitely has a different flow from a biography. And she was able to relate these women to each other in a way that I also really appreciated. So she would be talking about one woman's work, her life, and she would bring in a previous woman who she'd already featured perspective on that. So she would compare that last perspective that we just read about with this new person and how it was different or how it was similar or how it relates. And I really enjoyed that. She gives a lot of context to what she's trying to share, and goes there, really takes you there and makes you think about what these women had to do and the things they did endure, but also the joys of what they were doing. There was a lot of joy in this book. I hope I haven't made it sound like it was in any way hard to read their stories. Some of them did go through extremely difficult things. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of the women also found joy and pleasure and fulfillment in their lives in ways that are so noteworthy. And I'm so glad that this book exists to share those things. I personally found it to be very, very inspiring. And as I said, I underlined a lot of things in the book. And I just wanted to share with you, there are a lot of quotes that I think are really worthy of sharing right now. But I would like to share with you my favorite quote that is in here, and it is from Ursula K. Le Guin. Ursula K. Le Guin actually had a really good upbringing where her father was a creative as well, and also her mother, both her parents. And so she was very much encouraged to follow the lead, like follow her passion and to do it and to work it out. And then she married a man who was very supportive as well. And he supported her. He shared childcare. He did a lot of things that are very modern. And she was raising children in the 60s, I believe. So I really love this quote from her. I think that it speaks to, definitely if you are creative, you will feel this. But I think anyone who's struggling to pursue their truth and to follow who they are can get a really good, can gain inspiration from this quote. So she says, quote, "What you need is the conviction that what you are doing is of real importance and really worth doing, and you have to do it. And that conviction creates the sacred space around you." So I just love this idea because I truly believe that I feel that in myself, and I would encourage anyone who wants to be a creative to find that in themselves. Your conviction that what you're doing is important, that this work that's inside of you that you want to bring out is important, and it needs to be in the world. And when you have that conviction and when you push it out, even if it's hard, even if there's people resisting you, even if there's people who don't believe it's important and who are trying to keep you small, you have to believe it, because ultimately you're the only one who can make it happen and manifest it. And that will create kind of like a bubble around you, a space around you that will give you the space to work and to make it. So a very, very inspiring book. I would say it's probably the most inspiring book I read this year. I would highly encourage anyone to read it. As I said, I don't think you need to necessarily be a creative parent to get a lot of inspiration from this book. I think it has a lot of merit for empathy. It'll help you see things from a different perspective, but it will also, help you maybe go inside and work through some internal stuff that you didn't know you had in there around, maintaining who you are as an individual while dealing with all of the stuff of life that tends to warp and impede your own conviction and your own direction into what you have to contribute to the world. So that is The Baby on the Fire Escape review by Julie Phillips. Please check it out. I think it's a wonderful book. I know it's also available in audio. But if you are like me and you're creative and you feel like you could really identify with this, I would encourage you to buy your own copy, because you're probably going to want to underline a lot of things and make a lot of notes for yourself. So this will probably be my last book review of 2023. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back again soon with another video. Thank you for watching.